Support comes from Mosby Building Arts. This year, put your trust in Mosby Building Arts for fresh designs and the elevated remodeling experience you deserve. Inspiration at callmosby.com.
This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha. Let's talk St. Louis blues. And I'm not talking about hockey. Blues music has formidable roots in our region. Legends in the genre, like Henry Mule Townsend, Kim Massey, and Big George Brock, have made a name for themselves and the city for decades. And there's a new generation of blues greats coming up in St. Louis. One of them is Matt Lesch, also known as the Rattlesnake. He released his album Blues Cut Like Glass last year, and he joins us in studio today. Matt Rattlesnake Lesch, welcome to St. Louis on the Air.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me in today.
Roots music, like blues and jazz, are often associated with older musicians. And in a way, Matt, you are seasoned because you've been playing music professionally for half your life. And your professional career is thanks in part to Big George Brock. And you wrote a biographical song about him and his life that we're going to listen to in just a moment. But I want to rewind to when you were a teen. Did you have visions then, as like a 14, 15-year-old, of pursuing blues music professionally and full-time?
I really did. I can remember vividly when I was, just coming up in the scene at ages 14, 15, really imagining myself playing with, my heroes and on these stages at festivals, and it just felt right. It was something that felt, like it would take a lot of work to get to, but not fully ungrabbable.
Mm-hmm. 14 or 15, then we're talking like freshman and sophomore year in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So what was school like for you, traveling with blues legends? And, how did you go from performing in front of blues fans and then, going to take an algebra test in second period?
Well, I will say, I mainly played on weekends, and it was, a lot of late nights, especially when BB's Jazz, Blues, and Soups was still around. We'd play till 2:30, 3 in the morning, and then I'd have, maybe that Sunday, if I wasn't playing again to recuperate, then I had to go to school that next Monday. And there was definitely, kind of hard to concentrate sometimes, just given the fact that, you just had this really fun weekend doing what you love,
mm-hmm.
and then you had to go back to school and totally almost turn on another switch.
Yeah.
So
you had two jobs.
Basically, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Was there a particular moment when you realized, oh, this is it, and there's nothing else for me?
Yeah, I think one of the very first times I sat in with a blues band. I was 14 years old. I sat in with this band called Kingdom Brothers, who still play quite frequently around the St. Louis area. And I remember sitting in with them at this talent show that I was a part of in Chesterfield. And, I just knew right then and there, playing for such a big crowd of people and playing with just other great musicians, and I knew that was what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. And you must have had a lot of family support through this.
I did, yeah. I was very, very, fortunate enough to have a lot of support from my dad, my mom, my grandma, grandpa, everybody in the family, and they really supported me 100% when it came to this.
Mm-hmm. They're your OG fans.
Yes, exactly.
To get us warmed up, Matt, to talk about your mentor, Big George Brock, let's hear a bit of your song, He's a Blues Man, from your album, Blues Cut Like Glass.
He was born in Grenada in 1932. They called him Big George, and he played and sang the blues. He's a blues man. He's a blues man. to keep this man from singing the blues. They called him a lover in damn near every town. He knocked out Sonny Liston in only the second round. He wrestled with a bear and knocked it off his feet. They called him the king, 'cause his blues just can't be beat. He's a blues man. He's a blues man through and through.
And that was He's a Blues Man from Matt the Rattlesnake Lesch's album, Blues Cut Like Glass. So, Matt, Big George Brock had you traveling to and from places to perform with him and the rest of the band live on stage, and he passed away just a month shy of his 88th birthday in 2020. Take us back to your first meeting. How did that go down?
So, I met Big George when I was 16 at BB's Jazz Blues and Soups. And me and my dad used to take me everywhere and let me, sit in since I was, I couldn't drive really at that time, and I needed him to get into these places. So he would take me around, and we went to see Big George one night at BB's. And I went up to meet him and shake his hand, and he had heard about me through other members of the band that I had known prior to meeting him. And I go up to him, I say, "Big George, it's nice to meet you. I'm a big fan." And he goes, "You play guitar? You bring it with you? Well, why don't you go get it?" And that was the end of that conversation.
Okay.
And he called me up about halfway through the show, at around like midnight or 12:30. And he kept me up the rest of the night till about 2:30, playing with him, just playing the songs he normally does. And he was having such a good time, and so was I. And he told me at the end of the show, when everybody was gone, it was just us in the place. He said, "I'm gonna take you down to Clarksdale with me this next year." And he did. He kept his word. He brought me down to Mississippi with him and other places. From then on, until he passed away. I spent those next 7 years with him, playing and traveling and just learning as much as I could.
Mm-hmm. What an amazing story. It was also Big George Brock who christened you. He gave you your stage name named the Rattlesnake. So there must be a story there too.
Yeah, so, and it actually goes back a tiny bit further than that. So whenever, I first got that name, I was playing at the Blue City Deli. They used to have a lot of live music back then. And somebody had told me when I got off the stage, they go to me, they say, when you're on stage, you're as unpredictable as a rattlesnake. And it was just kind of a little thing that was thrown around here and there. But then when I met Big George, he heard my name was Rattlesnake. Mm-hmm. And them old blues guys, they all loved the nicknames. And so he really took it, and that's all he called me. A lot of the times when he was introducing me or, the people or on stage, he just called me Rattlesnake. I'd be like, "Rattlesnake on guitar." And that's how that name really kind of took off. And some people didn't even know my name. They just knew me by that nickname, yeah. Rattlesnake.
Do you have a rattlesnake tattoo? Do I see that?
I do. I do, yes.
How old were you when you got that? Not 15,
oh,
right?
No, I was not 15. Oh, gosh, how old was I? I believe, I want to say I was like 19 or 20. Somewhere around there. Maybe 21. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. But, yeah, it's very fitting.
Right, right. Big George Brock was a big deal in blues music in St. Louis and in the South, including in his birth state of Mississippi. And he was a professional boxer, a nightclub owner, and, of course, a musician. Did you know all of that about him? Like, was your dad maybe a fan? Were you ready to meet somebody who had that much, to his life?
I did not know everything about him. All I knew was that he was a blues legend in St. Louis, and that he had played with people like Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf. That was about the extent of my knowledge prior to meeting him. And then I found out all this other information about him, his stories he would tell me, especially about his boxing career, which, just added to everything. Which
the
is
Sonny Liston part.
Yeah. So that's a true story. Everything I mentioned in that song is 100% true.
So he actually wrestled a bear?
He actually wrestled a bear.
How big was the bear?
So here's the whole story behind that. I'll keep it kind of brief. Basically, there's this guy that had a baby bear in a truck, and he had mitts on him. So he could still hurt you, but he couldn't actually claw you. And the guy was offering some amount of money if you could pin the bear. And Big George wanted to try it. So him and his boss at the time went up, and he challenged the bear. Well, he was watching other people fail, and he said that he could see that every time the bear lunged towards them, they would back up, and that's when the bear would get you. So when he got up to the bear and the bear lunged towards him, all he did was step aside and trip him.
Oh.
And then the bear got mad, so they had to get it out of there. But then the guy didn't want to pay him because, they're like, well, you didn't pin him.
Right.
But they were, George was like, you didn't say how,
I mean, if that is not a blues song, I don't know what is.
Yep. So
we're going to take a very quick break here, but we'll be back shortly to continue this conversation with blues musician Matt the Rattlesnake Lesch. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio.
The Gateway brings you the day's news each weekday from around the St. Louis region and the state capitals in Jefferson City.
Our schools are accredited. We don't need this bill.
And Springfield.
How many more years must pass before lawmakers see time is of the essence?
I'm Abby Larico. Join me each weekday for The Gateway on the STLPR app or wherever you get podcasts.
Welcome back. I'm Elaine Cha. Let's get back to our conversation with Matt the Rattlesnake Lesch, and we'll begin with some of his music from his album Blues Cut Like Glass. This is Still Got My Blues.
You said that you love me. You said that you care. You said that you love me. You said that you care. I gave you all my love, but you ran away with a millionaire. I wanna know, babe, what did it do for you? I wanna know, babe, what did it do for you? You know you're an evil-hearted woman, but I still got my blues.
And that was Still Got My Blues by Matt the Rattlesnake Lesch. He joins me in studio to discuss his latest album, Blues Cut Like Glass. So Matt, music usually comes out of some emotion. It's meant to elicit a response. And blues music has the blues. And it's usually there's some sort of melancholy that's associated with it. And in Still Got My Blues, we definitely hear some of that. But there are also some heavy guitar riffs. It gives off kind of a more rock edge. And producer Maya Norfleet said when she saw you perform this song live at a benefit show, she knew that she wanted to invite you to talk with us. So I mean this with all due respect. Matt, you are a young man of 28 years.
Yeah.
Where is all this blues coming from?
Well, I can't really say, where it comes from. All I know is that, whenever I play, blues specifically, it just, it really makes me feel a certain way when I'm up there playing that guitar and singing that other genres don't, they don't quite touch. I play a lot of genres, but blues specifically is, the one that really touches my soul the most, and something I feel like every time I play, I can really just completely zone out, anything that's going on in life, and just play whatever comes out, comes out.
Have you ever felt like maybe you've been here before?
There's been times, where I've played and I felt this type of deja vu kind of feeling, this it's really you can't really explain it, And there's other times I've played where I don't even remember after I play a solo, I don't even remember what I played or what happened. That's if you're like really in the zone. It's a weird thing, but it's very
it's like transcendental.
Yeah, that's the perfect word.
Yeah. I mentioned that rock and roll edge earlier, and you mentioned other genres. Are there certain genres or artists that you're inspired by that if people listen carefully that they'll notice or hear in your music?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm inspired by many different genres and types of players. Like, right off the bat, one of my biggest influences is a guy named Charlie Christian, who in the 30s and 40s, he was kind of the pioneer of electric jazz guitar. He really was the one that brought out, all these sounds, and early blues stars like T-Bone Walker and all that were influenced by him. And, other people, going on to the more rock edge like Jimi Hendrix, of course, Stevie Ray Vaughan, just everything. I try to take a little bit of something from everything I listen to.
The next song we're going to listen to, it caught my attention because of the title. It's called Big-Legged Woman. Now, before we start the song, tell me about the inspiration behind, is it big-legged or big-legged?
Big-legged.
Okay,
Yep.
Big-Legged Woman.
Yep.
What's the inspiration for this?
Well, there's a song by Freddie King called Big-Legged Woman, but it's a totally different style of song. And so I wanted to, write my own version of this song, Big Leg Woman, the same title, but different music, different words. And I don't know, I think it's something that, a lot of musicians, especially guitar players, it's a kind of a, what's the word,
Like a standard almost?
Almost like a standard type of, conversation almost, so...
Let's hear Big-Legged Woman by Matt the Rattlesnake Lesch.
I got a big-legged woman, she knows just what to do. I got a big-legged woman, she knows just what to do. Well, she clowning and a-rowling, but she knows how to shake it loose. My baby left the house and she stayed out all night long. big leg woman. She's a big leg woman. She's a big leg woman and she knows just what to do.
And that was Big Legged Woman by Matt the Rattlesnake Lesch. So, Matt, the song is a modern twist, as you had mentioned, on a traditional blues formula, as it were. And you talk about your baby staying out all night, coming home without her phone, which is a major no-no, I think, in most relationships. How do you go about keeping blues music fresh and contemporary, both as a musician and as a performer?
Well, I think one of the most important things, especially for this new generation coming up, myself included, is that you can't rely on doing the same thing that other blues artists have done. Because if you take a look at the blues artists from back in the day that were just coming on, they were doing new stuff then. So it was new back then. So you got to find a way to, take that and make it your own. Whether that be the way you perform, like certain gimmicks, or the way you play. Even you don't want to play note for note exactly how somebody else played. You want to take that and just put your own spin on it and put your own flavor on it. Play how you would, not how B.B. King would or how Stevie Ray Vaughan would do it. Take their influence and then make your own out of it.
Big Legged Woman has a lot of instrumentation. We hear keys, horns, and of course your guitar. Tell us how you got into writing the music for Big Legged Woman. And what would you say is sort of the Rattlesnake signature?
Well, how I got into writing this song, right off the bat, this is actually one of 3 songs on the album that feature a horn section. And this is my first time writing a horn section for, anything like this. And it's something that, I had to get used to, but it's something I'm very, proud of for doing. And I think, just the melodies, the horn lines specifically, I put a lot of my own flavor, how I would play a horn line versus how a horn player would play a horn line. It may be similar, but I think it's slightly different. There's something there that's just different than what a horn player might think of right off the bat.
What should music lovers know about this younger generation of blues musicians that you are part of? And, in some ways, you are leading.
Well, I think, there's many great younger blues artists out there. A lot of my friends, Dylan Triplett, also out of St. Louis, phenomenal singer. I play with him quite often. He's a great friend. Marquise Knox, another St. Louis native. And some other guys like Stephen Hull and Sean McDonald, Matthias Latine, and of course Chris Stone, Kingfish Ingram, who right now out of all of us is the one leading the charge. I think he's out there, playing almost every day. We really take what we have learned from these older guys, and we don't just play the music. We really understand the business side of things. How the music is really made, what it takes to really be a musician like this, because the music is the easy part. There's a bunch of other stuff that goes into it. That's really the job part. And also going back to something we talked about earlier, like the topics of which we sing about. I heard my friend Kingfish say this once, that you don't want to, you can't just sing about the old standard like "My Baby Left Me." You need to try to push it in a new direction, and talk about today's problems. Whatever that may be. Somehow you want to make it about today, not back in the day.
Well, the mention of the cell phone certainly is something that is
exactly.
very in the now.
It could be something very, very simple like that, just making it up to today's standards.
Where can people find you and other blues musicians you've mentioned performing in St. Louis?
So I play kind of all around. Unfortunately, St. Louis lost a couple years ago BB's Jazz, Blues, and Soups, which was one of the main places I played. But right now, I play at a place called Highway 61 Roadhouse in Webster Groves. I'm playing at, festivals out of town and, in town whenever they have them. The Broadway Oyster Bar is another one. So I'm just kind of, all over the place. So a good thing to do would be just to check my website and kind of see where I'm going to be in the future.
And that website is?
My website is matrattlesnakelesch.com.
Matt, the Rattlesnake Lesch, blues musician, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me in.
This episode was produced and edited by Maya Norfleet.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations, and leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thank you.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.